know I'm coming through. When the growth look good on you, best believe they wanna screw now. I've been trying to climb, devil threw me in the dark. Baby, don't be insecure, you can still go make a mark like blow. Could never let them drain my soul now. Blow. Table turning like doorknobs, wow. Blow. I think I'm about to set sail. I'm a walking, living legend, walking with my chest out. Life keep dealing me cards, I keep feeling it.
What up, people? What's going on? It's G, and we are back in the building. Guys, please make sure you smash that like button. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel if you are new. We're back with another Scout Watch. You guys have probably seen a little bit of news recently in the last 48 hours, and today we're going to be speaking about Benjamin Pavard. Now, the Bayern Munich defender apparently is looking to leave Bayern Munich this summer. Don't really know the ins and the outs, but obviously a couple of reports there talking about how, you know, top clubs around Europe potentially looking at him, etc., etc. So I thought, you know what, with so many, you know, he's a, you know, brilliant player, you know, World Cup winner, you know, won numerous trophies with Bayern Munich, you know, won a couple of trophies actually with France, you know, Nations League, World Cup, runner-up for the World Cup as well, scored the goal of the tournament at the 2018 World Cup. You know, he's been in the Bundesliga team of the season, UEFA Champions League breakthrough 11 back in 2019. He's also played for Stuttgart. And he's also played for Lille. For Stuttgart, he won the second division back in the 16-17 season. So, you know, this is a player who is littered, you know, with honours. Very, very good player. And it's a bit weird, if I'm being totally honest with you, the fact that I'm even doing a Scout Watch on Pavard. I didn't really think that he would actually be a player who would potentially be on the market. But, you know, that might change, you know, over the next coming weeks, coming months. You know, with Thomas Tuchel in charge. He's only 27 years, you know, of age, just recently turned that back in March. So, you know, he's still in that kind of age bracket where you're like, you know what, if someone can pick him up now, you've got, in my personal opinion, you'll have about 5-6 good years, you know, potentially from this player. And I think with his repertoire of attributes, his skill set, you know, what he can do, even the things that he can't really do so well, you know, this is a player that I think is going to be one of the players anyway this summer. It might just be hot property, and I think any team who's able to actually get him this summer, I think they'll be super, super lucky. So obviously when it does come, you know, to Pavard, if we go and take a look, you know, at the news and stuff like that, as I mentioned before, this posted out by Dave O.C. Kopp, shared by Kicker. Kicker have just reported that Liverpool have made inquiries about Benjamin Pavard for this summer. And as I said, if you go into the article and you read it, you'll see that there are a couple of other clubs. I think one of the names I saw was Manchester, you know, United. Not surprised, as I said, you know, I think most teams could do with a player, you know, like Pavard, a player who can play right back, he can play centre back, he's played in defensive midfield before, you know, he's played in various other positions. So I think when you're looking at it, you know, this is his position set that he's played, you know, throughout his career. As I said, right back, centre back, DM, left back, central midfield, you know, left back. You know, this is a guy, right midfield. This is a guy who can play in so many different positions. And obviously, this is where, I'll take this banner off. This is where, obviously, he's played for Bayern Munich this season. It's been quite split, centre back and right back. You know, Bayern Munich have obviously used back three at times this season. So, of course, that's going to fit into the kind of new mold that most top teams are trying to use now, which is that three at the back. So again, showing that level of versatility. And I was interested as soon as I saw that Liverpool might potentially be interested in someone like Pavard. You know, as I mentioned before, I didn't think he was someone who would even be on the books, you know, to potentially sign. So he was never really a player that I would have looked at and thought, hey, you know what, let's try and get him in, and you know, all that kind of stuff. I kind of thought he would be set at a team like Bayern Munich, but you know, maybe not. Maybe they've got other plans for different players, and maybe they're looking to sign different types of players. Maybe Tuchel's trying to play a different formation next season. I have no idea, but I think it would be a mistake to let someone like Pavard go. But if he wants to leave, you know, who can really realistically stop him? I took a look here. Now, obviously, you sign for, if you're interested, or if Liverpool are interested in a player, I think one of the main things, especially myself, you know, when I'm doing these like watches and just looking at a player and seeing what they can and can't do and how they play. I think one of the main things I've got to look at is their injury history. Like, are there a player who is constantly getting injured, or do they have like a really bad injury track record? And you can see here, it's like, well, this is obviously posted out by Transfer Market. So again, take it as you will. They might have missed out some. There's probably some in there, according to this, he's not missed a game through injury in the 22-23 season. So, again, might be updated. Bayern Munich fans, if you're out there and you're listening, let me know in the comments. Anybody else who does obviously watch a little bit of German football, let me know in the comments. He might have missed some games or some Bayern Munich matches through injury. So, and I think that's all it would show. But if we see here, the kind of injuries that he is or that he was getting, knee injuries, abdominal injuries, ligament problems, bruise, obviously the coronavirus, ankle injuries. In the 21-22 season, obviously it shows here he missed 6 matches overall. In the 2021 season, 5 matches. It's nothing really. I'm more looking at the Stuttgart days, if I'm being totally honest with you. The ligament injury, the torn muscle, the nasal bone fracture, that's obviously quite early in his career after moving from Lille. So, when I'm looking at that, that's kind of where I was like, if nothing is really reoccurring, then I'm not going to have too much of an issue with it. And if they're just issues that, he's had prior, to, this season, but also just in his last, would we say 5-6 years, if he's not really having these kind of injuries anymore, then I'm not too fussed at the end of the day. But those Stuttgart injuries, those are the ones that kind of, I wouldn't even say stick out, but they're the ones that I'm looking at. I'm thinking, okay, fair enough. I mean, they missed that like a raft of games, so to speak. So maybe they're just little things, not little things, but just things where you're just like, okay, fair enough. We can deal with that. At the end of the day, like I said, you signed for Liverpool. That's just something that I always feel that you just need to kind of be careful with, because the way that we get injuries, the way that we pick up injuries from certain players, and the types of injuries that we do pick up here at the football club, I'm always like, oh, I don't know. I don't want to get someone who's always getting a hamstring injury, for example, because you're coming here to do a lot of running. That might be a problem, for us moving forward. But the type of injuries that he is getting, yes, they are a little bit like, but at the same time, I'm not too overly worried about that. And again, like I said, when you've got a player like Benjamin Pavard, who could be potentially available, he's had a decent track record this season, not really picking up injuries like that. And then on top of that, with the amount of games that he has played this season, 43 games, got himself 7 goals this season, 1 assist, 30 games in the Bundesliga, 9 Champions League matches, so he's showing himself to be available. And again, I have to stress, when you're thinking about joining Liverpool, these are one of the main things that you definitely best be looking at, because if not, we already know. We already know when it comes to Liverpool, and the injuries. When we're looking, at a couple of his statistics, he ranks quite high in a lot of metrics. He ranks really, really high. Now, when you're looking at some of the main ones, obviously I've highlighted all the high ones, or the ones that he ranks quite high in the percentile. So touches, progressive passes, tackles, interceptions. Again, I'm looking at that for the right centre-back / right-back role, even maybe moving into a defensive midfield position. Again, I feel that he has that versatility to be able to do so. I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, cool. Do you know what I mean? Again, that's all looking gravy to me. Progressive passes, progressive carries, again, looking good to me. Passes attempted in games, looking good to me. Shot creating actions, looking good. Assists, non-penalty goals. This season he really is performing pretty well. Hence the reason why I'm quite shocked. Even now, just thinking about it, I am quite shocked at the sheer fact that Bayern Munich would even consider letting him go. But I mean, they've made some crazy decisions recently anyway, to be honest with you. Oliver Kahn obviously leaving last match day after they just won the league. And I think a couple of others have followed him out the door as well. So it may be a bit of a weird time for Bayern Munich at this current moment in time. Changes afoot. So we'll kind of just wait and see on that. But what type of player is he? What's his style of play? Pavard is a modern defender with phenomenal tactical intelligence, knowing the game. Obviously, it says he is 22 years old, but we know he is 27. So this was obviously from a few years ago. The 22-year-old, obviously the 27-year-old, should I say, defender excels at reading the game and has an exceptional ability to anticipate passes. His ability to combine this with an incredible positional sense, well-timed tackling, and an excellent ability to close down opposing players in possession of the ball puts him at the upper echelon. Continued here. Technically gifted and tactically versatile central defender. He is also capable of playing as a DM and a right back. This flexibility led his former manager Hans Wolf to describe him as the team's Swiss Army knife. And again, like I said, when you're thinking about Liverpool, and it's not even just Liverpool, to be honest, if Manchester United are apparently inquiring, or if they hold some level of an interest for him as well, again, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking they could probably, use someone like that. I don't know what their formation or how they're looking to play for next season. Again, that's a question for Manchester United fans. But to have that person with that kind of flexibility, are they going to change the way that their fullbacks play? Will they have their fullbacks moving maybe more inverted next season? They don't really have that type of fullback, in my opinion. Well, on the right-hand side, most definitely, where you've got Wan-Bissaka and Dalot. I don't really feel like they're players who might be that comfortable playing as inverted fullbacks. Maybe so. Maybe the Man United fans might hear this and think, no, they can do it. If so, again, I do apologise. But the way I look at it, I feel that Pavard would be a better option. And I think defensively as well, he is really, really good. When you look at some of the positions that he's played, obviously for Bayern Munich this season, played in the back three, with Pavard, Upamecano, De Ligt, Cancelo obviously playing as the wing back with Alphonso Davies. I mean, that's a pretty good defense, if I'm being totally honest with you. Just going off topic, that's a pretty good team, actually, when you look at that, entire team. Bayern Munich are really, really lucky. Obviously, he's played in the back four as a right back. Again, interesting how Cancelo goes from the right wing back to the left back. Again, it's all about the versatility. Obviously he's played at centre back as well, and then for France, most of the time he is going to play as the right back. Again, they've got quite a lot of centre backs that they could put in there anyway. So it's just really the versatility for me. That's the main thing when I think about it. But I do think he is genuinely a really, really good player, and I think what he might offer us in certain games and stuff like that. Now, I put this up just to this is just more to just show where he potentially could play. I didn't put any of the other positions, weren't really that important. But if you were to sign someone like him, there's nothing to suggest that he couldn't take, Konaté's position potentially and play as a right centre back alongside Van Dijk. I mean, I've always maintained that, Konaté for me is not that good as a right centre back. So in my opinion, if I had to pick between the two, I'm picking Pavard every single day of the week. But I do like Konaté being in the middle. So I feel like that might be a battle between him and Van Dijk, as to who plays in that centre, central of defence. Obviously, for now, it's going to be Van Dijk, I would assume. But there's nothing to suggest that he couldn't potentially play in that position. Now, could he potentially play as the inverted right back? Now, we know that Trent Alexander-Arnold plays there. Now, I put Trent Alexander-Arnold in that position that we all keep talking about, the Henderson position from the last few games of the season for Liverpool. But I wouldn't be surprised. Now, I'm not saying, I know some of these tacticos are going to be like, oh, what's he talking about, blah, blah, blah. Don't be surprised if you see that, if you see something like that, if we were to sign someone like a Pavard, in my opinion. And the reason why I think someone like a Pavard, as opposed to when we were linked or when we are or were linked with Jurien Timber, is because one, Pavard has the experience. He's played over 200 games in senior football. He's a France international, France World Cup winner. Like I said, won multiple titles, with Bayern Munich. And he's one of those players who knows how to play at the highest level, whereas Timber isn't. Timber's quite young. He's still, working his way through, hasn't obviously hit his peak or anything like that. And I think Klopp would much prefer to have someone in the team who's a lot more experienced, who can help out, with other positions, as well as being able to help out some of the younger players that we do have in the squad. So people like Jones, people like Tyler Morton, Bajcetic, people of that kind of ilk. He can help them out in terms of just being that experienced player, but still not being like a James Milner age where you're 38 kind of thing, or 30, whatever, and you're almost over the hill. This is a player who is currently still, whether you want to say he's in his prime or not, that, that's remains to be seen. But the reality is, this is a player who's been playing at the highest level for quite some time. And I wouldn't be surprised if Klopp said I would trust him more in that position to then push Trent Trent Alexander-Arnold further up the field to play in that almost right centre mid / right attacking mid position where we can get him closer to the goal. And that's something that I looked at just purely because of that, because I said, I think, we don't know. Obviously, Klopp was already hesitant in putting Trent Alexander-Arnold in that kind of position anyway. Would that change his kind of creative output? I don't really think so. It would get him away, in my opinion, it would negate even more so the defensive responsibilities that he's currently got, because I don't really want him to be defending in those kind of areas. If I'm being totally honest with you, I'm a lot more comfortable with having Pavard there as opposed to a Trent. The only difference is when Trent obviously picks up the ball in those positions that I put Pavard in, again, he can do the long ball, he can do this. So maybe that might change a little bit. Maybe he then changes into a player who might just have a bit more of a free role, because if you've got Pavard there and whoever your left defensive midfielder is, and then whoever the left attacking midfielder is, if, for example, if it's McAllister, you've got McAllister there, Trent there, I still think you've got a good enough midfield to be able to allow Trent to be able to have that free role within the midfield where he's not bogged down in the defensive transitions. He's not bogged down in the attacking sense. This is where, and again, it just depends on who Klopp then decides to play at right centre back. Whether it is, even if it is going to be Konate as an example, that's fine, because Pavard, I'm more than confident that he's a bit more defensive bound. And yes, he is a bit of a marauding, would I say, right wing back, but he's got more of a defensive head than a Trent. And I think he understands where he needs to be defensively within teams and within systems, having played so many, different systems. And it's funny because he mentioned something like this back in 2021, talking about Trent Alexander-Arnold and Hakimi. He said, this was in a statement that he had put out. The statement that he mentioned before was misinterpreted. I'm more defensive than them, talking about Arnold and Hakimi. So obviously I defend more and they have better attacking stats. It's not what I meant. They are great fullbacks. I watch them. I'm inspired by the best. Centre back is my favorite position. It's where I'm most comfortable, but the coach decides, he puts me where he thinks I'm best. I'll always do my best and give everything for the team. So again, it just kind of depends on if we were to sign him, how would we use him? Is he a player that, if you do put him in that right centre back role, for me, he would be comfortable defending out wide. That for me is so key in being a wide centre back. I always mention it. Konate in the middle, I've got no issues with that. I like Konate. I think he's a really, really good player. And I know I keep saying it, but I have to reiterate that he is a really, really good defender when asked to defend in central areas because of his pace, because of his strength, and because of how aggressive he is. Ask him to go out wide, that's where he becomes quite rash. That's where he becomes a little bit open. That's where sometimes I just feel he's not that comfortable, both in and out of possession. When he does have the ball out wide, I then think to myself, because of your lack of capabilities on the ball, it then limits what you can actually do when you do have the ball. Whereas a Pavard, because he's so used to playing on that right-hand side as a right wing back or as a right back, I feel like we'd get a little bit more joy in that sense, as well as still being defensively solid anyway. But again, that's not to fight with, with Konate and say, Konate must be dropped. No, at the end of the day, you've got to earn your space in the team anyway. So if someone else comes in and they're better at you in that position, then that's just what it is. We see Laporte, at City. At the end of the day, yes, he's been injured and stuff like that. He's had his injury issues. But for me, when I look at Manchester City's defence, it doesn't include Laporte. And he was a player who was supposed to be, the guy, in their team, or he was, at one point in time. But it's all about, just because you were the guy beforehand doesn't mean you're going to still be the guy. And I think we should always be looking to try and improve, upon the team. So that's kind of why I looked at, someone like a Pavard. Now, this is a couple of seasons back, a couple of stills from when they played against Chelsea. I think this was en route to winning the Champions League. You can see here again, in the formation that they're playing in this match, is kind of four at the back, so to speak, with obviously Pavard and Alaba as the wing backs, and then Davis a little bit further forward. But again, you could say that, or really and truly, you could actually say it was actually three at the back. Actually, if I'm looking at it again, three at the back with Davis and Pavard as the wing backs, and then obviously Thiago dropping in with Gnabry, Muller, Koeman, and Lewandowski, in front. It seems like a formation that could easily change, to be honest with you, because Kimmich is obviously at the centre-back position at this current moment in time. So it's something that can kind of, change mid-game. Something that I keep talking about when it comes to Jurgen Klopp is being flexible with your tactics, being flexible with your style of play. Having players, now obviously this is Kimmich, who's a very, very, very top player, but you can still have that level of flexibility within your team where clearly here, when Bayern Munich obviously have this ball, they've actually got the three, should we say, centre backs, so to speak, because Kimmich has obviously dropped in. So Kimmich is then Boateng and Alaba either side of him, which allows Pavard and Davis to move forward. Again, we can do that if that's what we want to do in terms of having 2 or 3 at the back. We can have someone who just drops in, whoever it be, whether it's Fabinho who drops in at centre back, whether it's Pavard who then decides I'll drop back in at right back with then Konate and Van Dijk in the middle with whoever left back, Robbo, for example. Just having that flexibility. At the moment, I always feel like what we've got in the team is we will never have this where you've got your DM who drops in. We will have 2 at the back and it stays 2 at the back. Right, there's no right back, there's no left back. They've both gone forward. There's no left centre back. There's no right centre back. It's just they've all just bombed forward, and I'm like, that will leave problems if the other team pinch the ball back quickly, because then it leaves us quite threadbare at the back. And this is where you need to have smart players. That's why I keep going on and on about having smart players in these positions. It's all well and good having guys who can physically do the role. That's all great, and we know Klopp is all about his physicality over actual tactics. But for you, in order for you to be playing this kind of formation with 3 at the back and it being fluid and players understanding and having the IQ to understand, I need to drop in, I need to do this. Again, like I said, it could be a Pavard, it could be a Fabinho or whoever, just to drop into certain positions when we do have the ball, and when we don't have the ball, you're going to need certain players who understand that. And I think having someone like a Pavard in the team, I can't really see why not. I don't feel like that would be a bad thing. We're also inquired or linked with Timber, as I mentioned before. So maybe Klopp can see him being able to do that. But I just think when we're playing with this 3 at the back, when we have this kind of formation, I just need the team to have players who have a good football IQ. And I look at Pavard and I feel like he has a really, really good IQ. This is probably the way, if we were to sign him, this is probably how it would mostly look like. I don't think we'd ever necessarily see something like this, because I don't think we're going to go out and spend that type of money. But I think it'll be something more of the lines of this, where Pavard could just slot in at right centre back, but then also be able to, help out with Trent Alexander-Arnold. And then hopefully that doesn't leave us so threadbare at the back, because again, I think he would understand the defensive duties a bit better than a Konate, and going, but I'm not even necessarily going forward, because I don't necessarily need or want my left centre back or right centre back going forward, but picking the right moments to play further up the field. I feel like Pavard would do that, and because Konate won't really do that, you won't really find him, anywhere further up the field. That might just be by design, it might just be makeup, but I don't feel like he's even comfortable to do that. Whereas I'd be comfortable with Pavard if he was to do that anyway, because he would understand. And Klopp has mentioned about Robbo being on that left centre back side, hence the reason why I feel like we're potentially looking at that side more so. Klopp has mentioned that, with the discipline of Robbo, understanding, knowing when to go forward, knowing when to stay back, know when to help the attack, know when he needs to stay in his position. He lacks that discipline. I don't feel like Pavard does. So I feel like Pavard on the right, Van Dijk in the middle, whoever you get on the left-hand side, hopefully, like an Ignacio, for example. I feel like they'd complement each other well, if I'm being totally honest with you. But again, it just kind of remains to be seen. But I just wanted to kind of take a little look at, Pavard, the type of player he is. I think he's a good player. I would definitely be happy with a signing, like that, as long as he's utilised properly. I mean, I was happy with the Thiago signing, and I don't really feel like that's worked out. Even despite even the injuries included, I still just think we've not utilised these kind of players well. You know what I mean? We need to utilize them well, and you'll see the best from them. Honestly, I believe if we utilize Thiago better, you'd see a better Thiago. And with a better Thiago, inevitably, I feel you'd have a better team, to be honest with you. But ultimately, we haven't really done so. So, let's wait and see in terms of whether we would sign, someone like Pavard. I hope we do. I hope that this inquiry or interest is real, and I hope that we can move forward with that. But right centre back, right back, can play potentially even in DM if you needed him to. Rotation, versatility. He's ticking a lot of boxes, man. He's ticking a lot of boxes. So, guys, let me know in the comments. What do you think? Benjamin Pavard, is that a player that you would like to see at Liverpool? Do you even think it's realistic that we would potentially sign him? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you smash a like. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I'm G, Scatwatch done, and I am out.